I saw some fields on the way down that were completely flooded, and I wondered if they did rice. It's interesting that tobacco after the First World War became the highest, most valued of Bulgarian exports. You wonder if Albania has none of this as in its history. So now we'll move across to that fire room there. And look at here at the ceiling detail. This is only found at the ends of this ellipse. Okay, let's look at the room first of all. Here at the entry door, beautiful as usual. These cabinets seeming to be similar to the others, but probably tailor-made for this room, of course. I mean, this would be beautiful in any home today. Here at the ceiling, much more simple, so maybe this had a more utilitarian, less public purpose. The goldsmith's trade. This box reminds me of the beautiful box that I have made in the late 19th century, if not later. It has all the little drawers. This may have functioned the same way for the goldsmith. Of course, this bigger box held greater wealth. Tools of the trade. Probably a spoon for heating gold. There's some kind of a press, maybe to make something specific like continuous or links one after another easily. Perhaps files. Surely they had a technique for keeping track of any gold that was filed off. And what of this? Wouldn't it be interesting to sit, if we could, next to a goldsmith and see him use each of these tools? That someday will be a living museum, a CG museum, an Apple iPad museum. And here perhaps just for making different size rings for whatever the purpose. The bellows. Don't know what that's for. That's interesting, unless it's a device for crushing ore. To smelt the gold before he could work with it. Imagine the skill to make these things that we've seen before. Now, these are some of those belt buckles that the ethnic women in the hill country would wear that I've seen before. This is how families would store their wealth. So here the outline of a woman showing us where these various devices were used. Was this some kind of a veil? That second item? Here a necklace, of course. Some kind of a breast device. A belt. And these heavy bracelets. Could they be made of gold? I may have lost a video that I had of all of these kinds of things. Now these are about 3 inches across. Imagine if the family put one away every 5 years. Imagine the time to make these chains. You would think it would have required a stable economy for the wealth implied by not only the gold, but the labor and the workmanship, the craftsmanship that's embodied in this. No matter what the turmoil would be, the value of gold, of course, could be relatively the same, going up in price as it got more rare. But how would you place a value in fluctuating times on the labor inherent in this, the craftsmanship? Oftentimes these little things were coins, and these don't appear to be. But that was a common strategy also. Here what looks like a necklace. Notice in the top, perhaps a precious stone. One can only imagine the interesting history, perhaps, behind the stone. It sounds like the title of a book. Look at the magnificently detailed engraving, or applique, whatever it is. It's detailed, incredibly time-consuming. And then to attach it. A pretty and functionally simple necklace. We're going into this middle room. Notice this room goes deeply back into 2 or 3 rooms with rooms radiating off to the sides. No doubt for other utilitarian purposes, more discreet purposes, maybe bedrooms, maybe bathrooms, maybe servants, sewing rooms. A simple ceiling, a simple room. Wool carding. Ah, that's what they call it when they convert wool to yarn. But look how beautiful the tool itself is. Imagine the thickness of this material. And probably it was pressed in this device here, I'm guessing. What curious scissors. They almost look like they're made of metal, of wood. This looks like a bathhouse, a hammam. I have to get to the side in order to avoid the glare of lights, so I don't know if we can make out what this group of tradesmen are trading at. Maybe better. Can we see what these items are? Notice when I step from that room there into another room, here's 1, 2, and 3 rooms off of that, plus the hallway continues from this room into another room. A little bit more interesting design on the ceiling. This was a mechanized braiding workshop for making rope, in other words. And this room provided exterior access. Those are windows that we're looking through. Here is such a braiding machine, and you can see it was run by water by that turbine underneath. And this system of gears here. There's metal gears. So the beginning of the mechanized millinery world. Presumably the smaller threads were collected. Here we can see a mechanized potter's wheel driven by a water wheel and turbine. Here perhaps the goldsmith's furnace. Now apparently this deals with the process of digging and refining the clay. Here's something we've seen before, the hand turning wheel, potter's wheel, where he turns it by foot, sitting on that bench-like device. Rather an elaborate pot, though, eh? Interesting, this photograph shows women doing the pottery work. Now into this next room, kind of an entry area ceiling that's lower for some reason than the main ceiling. Main ceiling pretty, nicely designed, although not terribly elaborate. Again, the beautiful cabinetry work, but with a slight difference here of a non-wood shelving. with surface relief and design. Could this have been a woman's bedroom? I don't know. So this room represents the blacksmith's trade, but including some specialized functions. Now what these devices were, I have no idea, but maybe they're connected to that big deal there. Maybe somehow these things slipped over that. Here we have some kind of a blacksmithing factory, if you will. The water apparently came sluicing down through here, fell down into there, hit those turbines, one here, one at that end, turned these axles here that had splines on them there to click this thing, which would have raised a hammer and dropped it, raised a hammer and dropped it over and over endlessly. This may have worked the bellows. Yes, it looks like it did. So heating up that oven right in the center there. Pretty damn clever. All out of wood. The irony is, why would not the metal crafting industry have made this same device out of metal? Or when did they? Wood irons for holding wood inside a fireplace. Just some of the devices made by the iron workers, apparently. Rough-hewn locks. Imagine the work, the labor, and the sweat, the heat that is surrounded this exact anvil. This money case.